Today's lesson is 12.6, Improper Fractions and Mixed Numbers. The objective for today is I will identify and write mixed numbers as proper fractions and improper fractions as mixed numbers. So the first thing we need to do is define what a mixed number and an improper fraction is. So please include both of these in your notes, and I'm going to include an example for you to have as well. A mixed number is a number that has a whole part and a fractional part. So an example for this would be 2 and 2/3. The 2 would be the whole part because it's showing that I have 2 wholes, and I also have another fractional part. So it's kind of like saying that I have 2 whole cookies and I still have 2/3 of another cookie left. Right? Include the definition and the example that I've given you for mixed number. An improper fraction is a fraction in which the numerator is equal to or greater than the denominator. We call them improper fraction because when you think of the word improper, you think of something that's like not necessarily right. Okay, so for an improper fraction, this is my example, is 8/3. Improper fractions have a bigger number on top than they have on the bottom. We would also consider an improper fraction when the top number and the bottom number are the same, because we can also change that, as we've talked about, to one whole. So the example for improper fractions is 8/3. The top number is greater than the bottom number. Again, include the definition and the example. All improper fractions can be written as a mixed number, and all mixed numbers can be written as improper fractions. So in this problem, it says that David took 1 1/3 granola bars with him on a bicycle ride. How can you write 1 1/3 as a fraction? Well, so in this problem, I look at this top one, and it would be divided into thirds. Okay, he has 1 and 1/3. Well, we know that 1 is equal to 3/3, which would be what is drawn out right here. He also still has a third, just 1/3 left over. So if I were to write this just as a fraction, I don't want to have a whole number included. So I would get rid of the 1 whole, and 1 whole written as a fraction is 3/3. So I add 3/3 to 1/3, which I know that 3/3 plus 1/3, they have the same denominator. So all I'd be doing is adding 3 plus 1. So he actually has 4/3 granola bars. So that is this written, 1 1/3 written as a improper fraction. Now, you should have these steps glued in your notes. These are the steps for how you will change a mixed number to an improper fraction. You will add the number and the denominator. So the whole number and the denominator, you will not be adding them, you will be multiplying them, You will take step number 1, which says whole number times denominator. The X's are a symbol for times. So we multiply. So I'm going to rewrite it like this for this extra thing that I like to do with these. So I multiply 1 times 3, right? And then you add step 1's answer to the numerator. So 1 times 3 plus whatever is on top. So 1 times 3 is 3 plus whatever is on top would give me 4. And then my denominator, step 2's answer is the improper fractions numerator. Keep the denominator from the original mixed number. So whatever is right here remains my denominator. So I would end up with 4/3. So I also like to refer to this as the check mark method, because if you look at what I did, I multiply down, add up. You have to try to memorize the multiply down, add up part, but if you can remember the check mark, you can try to remember the step or the order that you're going to go in. The next thing we're looking at is how we actually change an improper fraction to a mixed number. For these, we'll actually use our division skills. So you divide the numerator by the denominator. So 10 divided by 3. So how many times does 3 go into 10? And I know it goes in 3 total times. 3 times 3 gives me 9. I do my subtraction, and I end up with an answer of 3 remainder 1, which is what you have right here. Keeping the whole number, which if we remember when we talked about our division skills, whatever number is before the remainder, that's a whole number. The remainder is just leftover, so it's not a whole part of anything. So I have 3 total. So then my improper fraction gets changed to a mixed number. 3 is my total. Keep the whole number 3, and your remainder becomes your numerator. So this remainder 1, that would be the number on top. As you can tell, your vocabulary for fractions is very important here. So my numerator is whatever is left over, and whatever I was dividing by, or whatever was originally the denominator in my original fraction, remains my denominator in the answer. So the denominator from the original improper fraction was a 3. So my final answer on this one would be 3 1/3. And we always say mixed numbers by saying the whole number and whatever the fractional part is. Now, I want you to go ahead and try some of these with me. So write down 1 through 4 in your notes. So for number 1, I have 1 3/4. I always like to rewrite them so that they look like this. The computer will always make the slash and make it look a little bit different. So when you handwrite them, you should write yours this way. It'll make life a little bit easier. So I take 1 times 4 and I add up. So 1 times 4 gives me 4, plus 3 would give me 7. Whatever my denominator is, it stays the same. So 1 3/4 is equivalent or equal to 7/4. It's the same number, the same fraction, just written as an improper fraction. So now I have 7/3. Some of you can look at this without having to write out any sort of a division problem. You can look and see that 3 goes into 7 2 times, because you know 3 times 2 is 6. So you would have a leftover of 1, and so you would end up with 2 1/3. So another way to show you that would be to have my 7 divided by 3. 3 goes into 7 2 times. 3 times 2 is 6, so I subtract out 6. I have 1. So in my answer, the 2 is the whole number that I have here. My remainder goes here. Whatever I divided by is my denominator. And the denominator does not change. I want you to try number 3 and 4 in your notes. Just give it a try. And then let's go ahead and try 1 and 2 from this slide. I'll do number 1 for you, and you need to do number 2. So looking at number 1, well, I know that 1 whole is equal to 8/8, which is what I have right here. So I would add my 8/8 plus my 3/8, and I would end up with 11, because 8 plus 3 would give me 11. And then my denominator, which is the same in all of these, does not change. So 1 3/8 would be the same thing as 11/8. And I could do my check mark method here too. 1 times 8 would be 8, plus 3, again 11, with a denominator that does not change. On number 4, see if you can do the division or use your visual to get your answer.